In August 1945, near the end of World War II, the world witnessed an event that would change history forever. The United States dropped 2 atomic bombs, one on Hiroshima and another on Nagasaki, just 3 days apart. The destruction was unimaginable, claiming the lives of over 100,000 people. But in the midst of all this devastation, there was one man whose story stands out: Tsutomu Yamaguchi. He survived not 1 but 2 atomic blasts. Yamaguchi was 29 years old at the time, working as a naval engineer for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. He'd been on a business trip in Hiroshima for 3 months, designing oil tankers, and August 6th was supposed to be his final day in the city. He was eager to return home to Nagasaki, where his wife, Hisako, and their infant son, Katsutoshi, were waiting for him. That morning, as he walked to Mitsubishi's shipyard one last time, Yamaguchi heard the drone of an aircraft overhead. When he looked up, he saw an American B-29 bomber flying high in the sky. Then a small object fell, slowly drifting down with a parachute. Before he could make sense of it, the sky exploded in a blinding flash. So bright it was like staring into a magnesium flare. Yamaguchi dived into a ditch just as an ear-splitting boom shattered the city. The shockwave hurled him into the air, spinning him like a rag doll before slamming him into a potato field. He'd been less than 2 miles from the epicenter of the explosion. When he regained consciousness, everything around him was pitch black. Dust and debris filled the air, blotting out the sun. The ground was covered in ash falling like snow. Yamaguchi's face and arms were badly burned, his eardrums ruptured, and his body was trembling with shock. Stumbling through the ruins, Yamaguchi eventually made it back to the Mitsubishi shipyard, where he found 2 of his co-workers, Akira Iwanaga and Kuniyoshi Sato, both of whom had also survived. That night, they huddled together in an air raid shelter, unable to sleep. When the sun rose on August 7th, the men made their way to the train station, which was miraculously still operating. The journey home to Nagasaki was like traveling through hell on earth. Fires were still burning across Hiroshima, buildings were reduced to rubble, and the streets were lined with charred bodies. At one point, Yamaguchi had to swim across a river where the water was clogged with floating corpses. Somehow, he made it to the train and began the overnight journey back to his family. When he finally reached Nagasaki on the morning of August 8th, he went straight to the hospital. His burns were so severe that even his doctor, a childhood friend, didn't recognize him at first. When he returned home, wrapped in bandages and barely able to stand, his own mother thought she was looking at a ghost. But despite everything, Yamaguchi dragged himself out of bed the very next day and reported for work at Mitsubishi's Nagasaki office. Around 11 a.m. on August 9th, he was in a meeting with the company director, explaining the horrors he had witnessed in Hiroshima. He described the blinding light, the deafening explosion, and how a single bomb had destroyed an entire city. But the director didn't believe him. "That's impossible," he said. And then, as if to prove Yamaguchi's story, the room lit up with another blinding white flash. The second atomic bomb had been dropped on Nagasaki. This time, Yamaguchi was shielded by a reinforced concrete building, but the explosion still shattered the windows, sending glass and debris flying through the room. His bandages were ripped off, and he was exposed to yet another dose of deadly radiation. Amazingly, Yamaguchi survived again, with only minor injuries. When he emerged from the ruins of the office, his first thought was of his wife and child. He raced through the devastated city, fearing the worst. When he reached home, he found part of his house reduced to rubble. But then, to his immense relief, he discovered that Hisako and Katsutoshi were alive. Hisako had been out looking for burn ointment for Yamaguchi when the bomb hit. She'd taken shelter in a tunnel, saving both herself and their baby. The days that followed were a blur of pain and sickness for Yamaguchi. His hair fell out, his burns turned gangrenous, and he was overcome with constant vomiting and fever. On August 15, as he lay in a bomb shelter with his family, Japan's Emperor Hirohito announced the country's surrender in a radio broadcast. Yamaguchi barely reacted. He was too weak to care. But unlike so many others exposed to radiation, Yamaguchi slowly recovered. He went on to live a relatively normal life. He worked as an engineer, raised 3 children with Hisako, and eventually became a teacher. It wasn't until decades later that Yamaguchi began speaking publicly about his experiences. In 2006, he traveled to New York to address the United Nations, urging the world to embrace nuclear disarmament. Having experienced atomic bombings twice and survived, it is my destiny to talk about it, he said. In 2009, the Japanese government officially recognized Yamaguchi as a Niju Hibakusha, or twice-bombed person. He remains the only person ever granted this distinction. Yamaguchi passed away in 2010 at the age of 93, leaving behind a legacy as both a survivor and a powerful advocate for peace. His story is a haunting reminder of the horrors of nuclear war and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found Tsutomu Yamaguchi's incredible story as inspiring and powerful as I did, please support the channel by giving this video a like, sharing it with others, and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss more stories like this. Your support means everything and helps keep this channel going. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.